I didn't think any game would be capable of taking my attention away from Final Fantasy XIV once I was fully bought in. Then along comes Team Ninja. I've been joking for a long time now and calling it the game of the generation, Neo 2, every single time I talk about it, and I'm not actually sure anymore if it's a joke or not. Every little addition they've made to the game brings me back in. New equipment, new stages, new weapons, and they all continue to keep my attention and give me the same thrill I got the first time I started, as I create character after character after character for each of the new weapons. Hundreds of hours in this game, and it still continues to thrill me. Whether it's the new DLC content, the added difficulties, I can't stop myself from continuing to live in the incredible world Team Ninja has built. Even after multiple playthroughs, I still find the story incredibly compelling and fun. The boss fights still excite me, even though I know most of them by the back of my hand, and every single loot drop gives me that serotonin drip of possible improvement to the look of my character. I love everything about this game, and it feels right to me that the game I see as probably my game of the generation came out in the final year of the console cycle. Now get ready for me to start talking about the game of the new generation of consoles when Neo 1 and 2 Remastered come out this February, because I'm not gonna stop.
Japan's least successful man turns out to be the golden boy we all needed. With a totally new story, Ichiban Kasuga is a breath of fresh air and a fun new take on what we can expect from a Yakuza protagonist. Growing up in uncertain conditions, Ichiban was raised in a soapland in Kamurocho with only the owner and the staff of the establishment to bring him up. As the game continues, Ichiban's constantly reminded that he might not always have a home to come back to. But even with the universe against him, Ichiban's always ready to stand with his friends and remind people why he's number one. Ichiban's positive demeanor and meaningful empathy with others shifts the tone of the latest Yakuza game in a way we weren't used to with past protagonists. Sure, Kiryu was a nice guy and fans liked him, but his stone-cold exterior sometimes only lent itself to the more melodramatic parts of Yakuza stories. With Ichiban, we get to see a Yakuza game where the main character genuinely loves his life and friends, and helps out simply because he can. Ichiban has a natural affinity to help others, and what struck me as unique was the extremely human empathy and charm he presents to recruit people to his party. While lots of times it feels like a hero magically becomes friends with everyone through sheer stupidity or plot magnetism, every conversation Ichiban has with other characters feels real. Ichiban's got nothing to lose, and his experiences allow him to level with people from all walks of life. With such a positive and uplifting character in the starring role of a long-time dramatic series, it was a no-brainer Ichiban stood out as Character of the Year.
The writing for Ellie in The Last of Us 2 fails at every step of the way. Awkward when she's meant to be sweet, groan-inducing when she's meant to be horrifying, and a boring down at the rest of the time. Not only is her overall arc in the story disgusting, she's a pain to spend an entire campaign with. In between uncomfortable flirting, the only other words she'll spit out is asshole after stabbing a person and calling them a fucker after shooting them. Presumably we're supposed to feel sad because of how light-hearted her character used to be in the first game, but the shock wears thin after your killing spree starts piling corpses in the 3-digit numbers. As the protagonist of a narrative with a dull message that revenge doesn't work, she has to undergo arc after arc of the same lesson, only to fall off the wagon and refuse to turn tail for increasingly contrived and petty reasons. Her epiphany only comes when it seems the game has run out of time and money without any rhyme or reason. The only moment in which the player and Ellie see eye to eye is here, at the end, when you both conclude that watching True Grit would have been a much better story about a young girl coping with revenge than anything that happens in this multi-million-dollar wreck of a story.
rare are the games that have such a keen sense of style and detail in their presentation. Being a tower defense gacha game, Arknights was fighting on two fronts to keep me interested and engaged, yet its acute sense of direction and design had me coming back all year long. Tower defense games have never held my interest for more than a couple hours at most, and Arknights takes that framework and bolsters it by turning towers into characters with a wide array of classes, skills, and specialties. There's enough strategic depth here to satisfy all kinds of team compositions, and even the weaker units can be linchpins if you play to their strengths. On the gacha side of things, it'd be easy to think that the rarest characters are the best. And while it is true that 6-star operators can be very powerful, that isn't always the case. Certain skills or passive talents can make lower rarity operators on par or even better than their 6-star counterparts. It never feels like a unit in Arknights is completely useless. What really won me over, though, was Arknight's absolutely incredible UI design. Every facet of the interface, from menus, to tooltips, to font choice and iconography, is the most congruent with its aesthetics and gameplay that I've ever seen in a video game. While crisp, clean, minimalist UIs have become something of a trend in modern games, they often lack a lot of character and coalescence with the rest of the game's aesthetics. Arknights, being a tower defense game where most of the gameplay is interfacing with menus, had to nail this aspect in its entirety, and they did so flawlessly.
Despite being a game centered around death, Spiritfarer is a game about comfort. In conjunction with its stunning 2D animated visuals, it is no wonder the game banked real hard in marketing your ability to hug the different NPCs when the title was first previewed. And rightfully so. Having released in a rather testing year where physical contact and intimacy, customary to how we usually interact with loved ones in society, now only existing within thought and painful longing, the purpose behind hugging in Spiritfarer becomes ever more so poignant. At a glance, the ability to hug NPCs may just seem like a very specific surface element that solely exists to be cute. But in truth, it serves as an actual mechanic to the game's relationship building system. As the Spiritfarer herself, you not only are sailing these spirits towards the afterlife, but you are also taking care of them along the way. Hugging serves one of many needs, and the game also adds the subtle but necessary touch that hugging must be asked for. Influenced by their current mood, each character will let you know whether or not they want to hug in that particular moment, also demonstrating how much the game recognizes the important relationship between touch and consent. In a time where such a simple act currently is not within reach for many of us right now, Spiritfarer reminds us how healing and emotionally reckoning the power of touch can be when properly applied. And sometimes, that can be in the form of a hug. Most turn-based RPGs depend on having a solid combat system. Although not every title may offer the most enticing battles or even provide you the best likable characters or attacks, being able to navigate a logically designed combat system is the bare minimum, especially as something that you'll invest most of your playtime in. Ikenfell, on the other hand, suffers from the opposite problem by offering a very interesting world tarnished by a grueling, poorly designed timing-based combat system that you cannot avoid. In Ikenfell, every time you conduct any ability in combat, you have no choice but to time a button press at a very specific moment. Otherwise, it performs terribly or simply fails. There is also no consistent visual language across all of the different abilities your characters can do to properly familiarize yourself with this system. It adds an unnecessary element to what constitutes pretty much half of the experience of the entire game. Successful uses of this mechanic has appeared in other games, but Ikenfell does not have a just rationale connected to its settings, roles, or plot as to why it needed this in the first place. The game could have functioned just the same with more traditional turn-based combat, serving as a frustrating example of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
After years of making fun of the addictive construction of the gacha genre, I have finally found myself with a game that has me looking forward to completing daily tasks and acquiring the currency to get more characters. Far from being a treadmill of addiction, however, Genshin Impact seduced me with a fun and creative combat system and a colossal open world that allows it to play out in a plethora of flavorful, beautiful locales that allow the elemental combat to play off of the environment. The beautiful world is already one of my favorite depictions of the traditional Chinese locales that I have been enamored with since I was young, and seeing aspects of the mythology and culture inform the storytelling makes it all the more unique. The characters, while a little archetypal, all have strong personalities and charming dialogue. Most of them currently sit at Act 1 of their respective stories, yet they have already begun to take on some nuance and develop dynamics to set them apart from the casts of other gacha titles. Not to mention the guys are very good looking. I have never been one for ongoing games, and whilst it remains to be seen whether Genshin Impact will be capable of developing its story into something more than an excuse to travel a colourful world, and make good use of its ever-expanding ensemble of characters, for the moment I am excited to see it through to the end.